I am recording on my end. I really need to come up with something better than like I am recording on my end because I don't know, just for variety, you know?
Yeah, we got to switch it up every so often. Like, I don't know.
I feel like it should be like I don't know, like tally ho or you know something something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, that might be a little bit too ridiculous, but I don't know. It depends on what kind of vibes we want to give as we're slowly coming back into doing this on a regular basis since we've kind of been lax about it the past month.
Summer travels and sort of taken away from the normal schedule, and hopefully we'll figure out how to do this again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
whatever. The next few months are going to be, or at least are shaping up to be, quite interesting for me.
Okay, so I'm curious about that. What's going on?
Two main things. I already talked about the Acadia trip that I have that I'm planning out for October. I still have to book the campsite for that, but I'm not able to until the 12th or so because it's 3 months out, 2 months out.
Okay.
Whatever they consider it. And you have to book it along that same week. So I'm not really expecting any difficulty with competing against other people wanting to camp at like the last week that the campsites are open there. So
are you choosing like specific campsites through the online registration? Or is it just like you're just looking for any sort of spot?
It doesn't matter really what spot. I mean, I'm looking at the Blackwoods campground specifically because I've gone there twice now. And that one's open the longest. It's... I think they are open until the 21st of October, so it'd be right at the edge of season that I'm going.
Okay.
The rest of them close a little bit earlier throughout the season. Plus, that one is like central. I know the area a little bit better than the others. But
it makes planning it easier if you already have a good feeling for the area and the campground and all that. So that's
exactly.
Good.
Yeah. So I've got that one coming up that we already discussed a little bit before, but in more recent developments, I guess I'm going to Yellowstone in September.
Oh, wow. Have you been there before?
I was there with family in the 2017 trip that we had done, but that was really just, I mean, it was a tour bus that we were on. It was a tourist kind of ordeal. So really it was a matter of, all right, here's the Yellowstone Falls. Let's look at that for a couple minutes. And let's get back on the bus and let's go down to like the geysers and that kind of thing. And now we're moving on to something else that we have in the itinerary. So it wasn't really truly seeing Yellowstone. It was just seeing like the postcard images of Yellowstone.
You get to see people see Yellowstone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So this one, David Kingham and Jennifer Renwick run an intimate landscapes workshop.
Oh, that's very cool.
And it's based mainly out of West Yellowstone, or at least that's the starting point for it.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned it twice before about me joining with them, just as a guest kind of situation. And I wasn't too sure because of the Acadia trip and the job situation, like always up in the air. Like if something happened where I got a teaching position for this school year, then that kind of nixes all of my fall planning, all of my fall trips. So I didn't want to commit to anything, especially booking a flight and all that. Not to mention the other issue with it is that the hotel rooms that they have reserved are like $400 a night.
Oh yeah. Because that's like, that's prime, especially the West Yellowstone area. There's not a ton there.
Exactly.
And it's toward the end of the main season when things start to get a little more interesting there. But yeah, I can see how it would be expensive.
Yeah. So I'm like, you're looking at $500 to $1,000 for a flight, depending on where you're flying into, round trip. And on top of that, like $2,000 in total for the hotel, not to mention food and any gear rental that you need, etc. So
that adds up.
That was like, I can't afford to do that. But it turns out that I kind of can. But in different ways. So I'm not. So I'm going to be going out there. I'm flying out to. I have to book my tickets and everything yet, but the plan is to fly out to Bozeman, Montana.
Okay.
And then
So
rent
just
a car
north
from
of
there.
it, yeah.
Yeah, rent a car from there, drive down to West Yellowstone those 2 hours, and then I'm going to be camping for the week instead. There's a campground that's right outside of West Yellowstone. It's actually like kind of across the street from the West Yellowstone Airport. So not ideal camping conditions as far as what it looks like, at least. But it's $200 to camp for the week versus $2,000 to stay in a hotel room. I'll take camping any day of the week.
Yeah. Plus, you'll get more of the authentic experience. I mean, you're not necessarily going to be out in the wilderness, but you'll be able to feel the temperature at night.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes it. It'll get a little chilly there. But yeah, that's cool. When my wife and I have gone there, we've done camping there, and I don't know. I mean, the hotels are great, especially for when it comes to like workshops and stuff like that. But I just love that like night air, cutting through the tent at night. So I don't know. I would kind of do the same if I was in your shoes.
Yeah. I mean, like at the end of the day, it is really just a financial situation. Like I just can't stomach spending that much for a week for a bed at the end. Like that's it. Like, but also, like you said, I enjoy camping so much more than being in a hotel room regardless. And it's not like I don't have or won't have access to the hotel, because we'll still be meeting in there for like the image reviews and the lectures or everything else that they do. I mean, it's just a place to rest my head. That's really all that it is. So I've got my campsite booked. I got to figure out my flight officially. From there, the only other thing is I contacted Fuji again, or I emailed my contact at Fuji.
Yeah.
Because that makes me feel more
really
important.
Special.
I know, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's so weird for me to say, but I contacted them and I'm like, hey, can I get the 500 again and the 250, those 2 telephoto lenses for the GFX? And they're like, yep, we'll fill out the forms, send it over, and we'll get it over to you then.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I've got those 2 lenses that I'm going to be bringing along. I'm also going to rent from Lens Rentals the 1.4 teleconverter, just because based on a recommendation from David directly about having longer lenses. It is an intimate workshop. I don't know exactly what I'm going to need for this. I may not end up using either of them or anything that I loan or rent, but it's still better to have it. And because to be quite honest, I don't really plan on doing much travel like outside of the East Coast next year at all, or in the foreseeable future. I just don't necessarily have the drive for it unless other things pop up.
That's cool. Now, have you, in starting to do the research for the trip and stuff, and maybe talking with David and Jennifer, have you, do you have a feeling for what the weather is supposed to be like that time of year?
He sent over a document that kind of goes through everything, and I looked at it loosely, but I don't know. I prefer flying by the seat of my pants with this stuff. It makes it more interesting, but
you gotta be a little prepared in terms of like how chilly it's gonna get at night, and sleeping bags and such.
The camping situation, I guess I should probably prepare for a little bit.
Because it's now on the over at West Yellowstone. I don't have a feeling off the top of my head for the elevation there compared to the main part of Yellowstone, but you're actually at very high elevation in the main part of Yellowstone, even though it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
So even in July, when my wife and I've been there, it can drop down to the 20s at night.
Nice. Lovely.
Yeah. So it's nice and crisp and chilly, but that's July. So just be prepared as I try to make these words come out of my mouth, just for some chilly nights, and see what the typical temperatures are since you'll be camping. Because very cold night's sleep is not ideal. Yeah.
I don't know if they have here we go. Nope, they don't have the weather updated in the document anyway. I mean, it's still a month out, so who really knows what it's going to be? But I got to figure out my camping supplies for both this Yellowstone trip and for Acadia, because they're both going to be quite chilly, especially with Acadia being the Blackwoods campground is right offside the ocean. So
okay, so you got the humidity or the moisture in the air as well, which kind of can have an impact on things. Do you already have stuff that's decent for colder weather camping?
I gotta look. I'm not sure exactly what the stuff that I have is rated at for that. I know that my dad, I believe he still has it because he used to do a lot of camping in the Adirondacks in like later November for hunting season.
Yeah.
And he has a mummy bag, I guess is what they consider it.
Yeah.
That is like, he'll be in 20-degree weather up there or so, and he'll be sweating. Yeah. So it's definitely something that I'll be stealing from him to travel along with.
Yeah, that plus a good sleeping pad for some good insulation from the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that'll be good. I mean, I would prefer to camp in a situation like that. Just thinking back to last year when my wife and I went on a kind of a late spring trip over to the Escalante area in southern Utah to show her some of the places I visit. And, you know, it was a bit of a warm day. We weren't planning on camping just because, I don't know, it gets warm and it's nice to have the AC of a hotel and stuff to kind of go back to at night. But the hotel we're staying at, there was no balcony or anything like that. So you're just kind of like in this room in the AC watching reruns of The Office, or you can kind of go outside, but there's like, I don't know. I like to have, at least if it's a hotel, someplace I can just like sit outside and just like soak in the weather and the feel of things. Go out, you know, early in the mornings and just kind of like sit out there and just look at things. So I love having that connection to that outdoor space, which you certainly get a lot of for camping. Yeah. And my wife and I were actually thinking probably not next year, but maybe the year after that, we want to head up to Yellowstone again because we love that area. And hopefully by then I'll have my new vehicle, which will have a little pop-up camper on the back, which will make things a little bit nicer in terms of, you know, turn the furnace on and have it warm up a little bit if it does drop down pretty chilly. But we love that area. It's such a cool area. And we have not been during the month of September. So it'll be interesting to see what you find.
Like I said, I wasn't too sure about the trip in general, partly because of, you know, the job situation, of course, but also it's not like I said to my fiance, like, it's not an area I am super excited about. And I think that largely comes because of how I first visited it. Yeah. And it was during that the tour bus. It was really just denigrated down to, here are the geysers, here's Old Faithful, and here's the waterfall. Yeah. And that's it. And it's not like we got to see really anything else while we were there. Yeah, there's no connection to the environment. There's no freedom to follow your curiosity. It's just it's like you're going from one postcard to the next, you know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw I'm trying to think of what we all did actually see. We saw like the dead trees in the white almost like sandy base. Yeah. And then there was something where we were staying, and maybe it was in West Yellowstone that we stayed, or it was more central. I don't remember, but it's another popular spot that was like it was an all white like step-toe setup. I can't remember what it was called, but regardless, there wasn't like much time or much freedom for me to explore. Yeah. But when David mentioned it again just the other week, I went on to his and Jennifer's website specifically for their workshops, and I was looking through the photographs that they had taken away from it. And then something just clicked. Some form of connection to the area just clicked, because I got to see through their eyes like the potential for this area that was not introduced to me previously. Yeah. And so I am definitely looking forward to it and seeing what I can pull from it. And even more so, I'm looking forward to watching David and Jennifer teach and watching them in action and seeing how two other individuals who are highly praised for what they do, seeing them, you know, teach and educate others and see how they go about workshops in a way that is perhaps more new school than what I've seen before with John and Jack because of them having been in the industry for so much longer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just what I was going to mention, the fact that you'll be able to see firsthand and get that taste of the experience. And so that's something that you could, figure out, because you've mentioned, the desire to teach and maybe at some point do the workshop. So, it'd give you a different perspective, which I think would be nice. And I'm sure it'll be the sort of thing where going on the trip, there will be some sort of takeaway from it and some sort of experience from it that you will look back on very fondly. But at this point in time, you don't know what that's going to be. And it may be something completely different than what you think.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is a really, it is a very special area. I mean, I just love when my wife and I would get up very early in the morning and we just go on these drives when you're going on these roads that will be very busy during the day with just tons of cars. But when you're out, a little bit before sunrise and you're just driving along and you just see so many of the animals are more active in the morning, like grizzly bears all over the place and all sorts of stuff. And I think that's the really fun thing about Yellowstone is that it does continuously change and you never know what you're going to see on a particular day. And when you do see something, you kind of get a feeling that, this is something special that you're seeing as you're seeing it, as opposed to just in retrospect. So we've always been grateful for the times that we've been able to spend time there. And just hearing about you going there is going to just get me excited about heading back there. Maybe not next year, but maybe the year after that. But yeah, it's a long drive from San Diego, but I'm looking forward to it. And it would be a really fun way of using the new camper setup when eventually I ever get that, which is probably at least a year away. So
yeah,
but that'd be fun.
What I was talking about earlier, I just happened to look it up. The other thing that I had seen was the Mammoth Hot Springs.
Oh, yes. Up towards the northern part of the park. That's a really cool area as well.
Yeah, we stayed in that area overnight, I believe it was, in one of the lodgings that they have. And that was cool to see. But like I said, just not much time to explore, like what this will actually allow. So
yeah, and it's a huge park. I mean, it's massive, which I think that it'll be interesting to see how they handle that for the workshop, because all that stuff has to be fairly well planned in advance in terms of getting a feeling of how to be the most productive with it. But it is a very, very large area, and just driving around and looking at the scenery is something that I look fondly back on. So that's very cool.
One of the other things that's going to be taking up some of my time, or has the potential to be taking up some of my time, is I've been interviewing for a job.
Oh, okay. So what kind of job?
So this isn't in education, at least not directly. Going back a few weeks now, when I was in Shenandoah toward the end of July, I didn't have my phone on at all. I shut it off completely, and I figured I don't have service while in the campground anyway. It's a waste. I don't need it for driving around that much. As I was coming back home, I turned on my phone because I needed directions, obviously. And I ended up seeing that I got a text from my neighbor. And my neighbor I've known for the 10, 11 years that we've lived at this house now. And she kind of half-jokingly mentioned it, but she asked if I had any interest in being her team partner at the facility she works at. And so we got to talking. And so she works within mental health. It's family-based therapy. Mm-hmm. And she works with troubled kids and families, helping to do in-house visits and some over the phone kind of calls, and taking the kids out for like ice cream or like ball games or stuff like that to build relationships with them over an 8-month period. Yeah. And from there, trying to help them as well as the families learn coping mechanisms for trauma, for mental health issues that they're faced with, that kind of deal. So we got to talking a little bit about it, and the more that I thought about it, like I still have I'm still conflicted about taking it for a couple different reasons. But before getting into that, it's kind of funny because she offered it half jokingly, but psychology has always been something that I've been interested in. I mean, I have my personal background with my own mental health dealings and with my own experiences with that, as well as the readings and the videos and podcasts, etc., the self-knowledge that I've accrued over the past few years regarding various principles. And one of the things that I was thinking about going into, one of the fields I was thinking about going into before entering college was industrial organizational psych. But then I saw that it's 10 to 12 years of college, and because you need your PhD and you need like clinical time and all of that kind of deal. It's a huge endeavor.
Yeah.
And my 18-year-old Cody, who did not want to go to college in the first place, was not for that at all.
Yeah.
But still, I ended up talking with my neighbor about it more, and it sounded like it could be an interesting fit. So this past Sunday, I applied for the position because the application officially opened up. Then this past Monday, so a day later, I had the first round interview. And of course, how the world seems to work best is when you know people.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's who you know more than anything sometimes.
Exactly. And that goes with art. That goes with everything in life, it seems. But because of my neighbor, I told her that I applied for it. She told her boss, who was interested to meet me and everything. And my application got pulled from the pool much quicker than others. And so I ended up with this interview the next day after applying. And then this morning, I had my second round interview with who would be my boss, the clinical supervisor. And next week, I meet with the team to get a kind of like a group interview, kind of get a feel for everybody and have them get a feel for me, make sure that everybody's fitting together well. And then after that, it's one final interview with the boss again, specifically more of like a corporate interview style of like one of the examples of a potential question that she gave was like, look back to the last time you got angry at work and how did you cope with that to still maintain a professional facade or so, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Half personality test, half like questionnaire, So yeah, like I said, I'm still a little at odds with it. But the interviews, they've gone so much better than any interview for education I've ever done.
That's very interesting because I don't know, because it feels like they're not too dissimilar in a way. But at the same time, it feels like there's, more at stake for this line of work as opposed to strictly just like a teaching position. Because you're going to have a greater impact in some ways on people. Is there any sort of like educational background that they're wanting people to have or anything like that?
Well, that's the nice thing when it comes to family-based therapies. From what she was telling me today, you don't need to have your master's or anything in psychology or counseling or social work in order to work in this field. Like for her, she was brought in 30 some years ago and she has her master's in philosophy.
Okay. Yeah.
So as long as you're adjacent to the field of psychology or working with kids, working with families, with people in general, educator roles, relationship building,
which that's your background for your education. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which, and that was something that I questioned too when my neighbor first came over to me. I was like, well, I don't like, and she knows my situation. She knows what I have my degrees in and all of that. But I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, do you not realize I don't have my degree in psychology? Like, can I do this? And apparently I can. And it's kind of funny in a sense and maybe funny is not the right word, but I can't think of a better one, that I have my master's in education, but every interview I've done in the realm of education has gone like shit and like not led to anything. But I have personal knowledge and accrued knowledge from self regarding, psychology and mental health, philosophy, and I can interview like no other when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that comes down to passion too. Like I am truly passionate about helping others, educating others, especially when it comes to mental health. I mean, that's, at least I hope that's been evident through this podcast and every podcast that I've been on, through my writings, all of that.
And also your extensive reading list.
Exactly. Yes.
You've gone down many rabbit holes with all kinds of stuff with some of the various reading you've done. But that's very interesting. It also shows how, you've been, and we don't know how everything's going to shake out in the long run, but you've been working so hard to get, have the interviews go well for the teaching stuff. But meanwhile, there was an opportunity literally next door. So something to be said about the whole close to home stuff. There's it is interesting. It does come down to the people So it doesn't surprise me. Is it, if you are able to have that, if you were to take on that job, do you know if it's something that's a flexible sort of setup that would allow you to also do some of like the photography stuff, the trips and stuff along those lines?
Yeah. So the working hours, it's technically a 40-hour work week, but how my neighbor has her schedule set up is, and my schedule would be pretty much the same because of working directly alongside of her. It would be like Monday through Thursday. A lot of the working hours are in the evenings, unfortunately, because of the fact you're working with families, with kids, and school schedule, work schedule, etc. But I mean, it's still better than working weekends. So and when she says evenings, it's like a late night of you're getting home by like 8:00. So realistically, it's not that terrible.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Yellowstone and the Acadia trips, they're still completely in play. They're not being changed. Neither person that I spoke with, interviewed with, had any issue with them, which is great.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. And even better of a sign when it comes to that is that the woman I interviewed with today, who would be my boss, she understands, she knows that I'm an artist. She loves that about me. And she wants to implement my creativity, my thoughts around creativity and helping with mental health into our practices as much as possible. So nice. That alone is like a huge green flag for me. Like the fact that she wants to implement my passions into work, because as she says, and I mean, everyone says this when you're getting hired, that we want our facility to be a fun place to work. Yeah. But based on how she is and everything, and how my neighbor has spoken of her and speaks of her line of work in the first place, it does seem like it's a solid enough fit and flexible enough that I shouldn't have any kind of issue. It's just, it's still one of those things, like a part of me, and I've spoken to Alex Noriega about this a little bit. I've spoken to David Kingham about this. A part of me kind of feels like it's almost giving up on photography and what I've been working towards the past year or two, of trying to make it work on my own. But at the same time, I have to realize that this really isn't going to affect my photography that much or that greatly, because I still do most of my work locally. I'm still able to do these two planned trips. And even more so, I still have a long weekend where I can get out when I want to. I can dedicate that time to writing or to creating in some facility. And based on what I've spoken with my neighbor about, for the most part, I mean, maybe the first 3 months, till the rest of this, if I get hired in September until the rest of this year, maybe that's my like busiest time with trainings, initial onboarding and that kind of thing. But otherwise, from what I've spoken with my neighbor about, like she has Wednesday nights, she won't do any client meetings because she has row class. She meets with a team for rowing for whatever. And so she won't give up that time. And so like it's flexible in that sense. So I'll still have time to get out to my local parks and pursue my creative path. And if I figured at the end of the day, this gives me a year of security, of solid pay, of great benefits and experience following a curiosity of mine. And at the end of the day, if next year I decide, you know what, this just isn't for me, well, then I leave and I move on to something else, or I go back to trying to make my photography work, hopefully with a leg up.
Yeah. And it would, especially with the time you would have off and the fact that you do most of your photography close to home, it would allow you to keep photography something enjoyable and keep it as an outlet. Because, you know, things do change when it becomes work and you have the pressure associated with it. And so I would think that, you know, it seems like so long as you can strike that balance, you know, if everything works out well, if you're able to get that job, but you still have the free time to, you know, pursue photography, I see that as being a pretty good thing. Have that security that comes with it. And just like you said, you know, it could be the sort of thing where, I mean, who knows if it's a long-term thing, if it's a short-term thing, you know, no one really knows. But sometimes I think just having that break from the monotony of one thing, you know, the photography stuff and all that can be a good thing. And maybe it'd give you a different insight so that when you do pursue the photography, you'll take it on from a different perspective. Which is, you'd only know that, you know, until, you know, after the fact, you know, if things work out for that.
Yeah. I think the other benefit to this is that it is still in a field that I'm heavily interested in and invested in all manners of my life.
Yeah.
And so by working in a field like this, like psychology, and I think I'm going to be able to glean some sort of insights practically every day from working with clients and that kind of deal that I can then apply towards my writing, towards my photography, my own journey to potentially help others or to even selfishly help myself in that degree. And who knows what could come from that, of being able to think, because like I'm thinking about photography every day, all of the time, and writing every day, all the time right now.
You need a break.
And exactly. To be able to give myself a break, to give my brain a break where those thoughts can kind of percolate in the background more so, and new epiphanies, so to speak, can come rising to the surface, might actually be a really beneficial thing and help me along more than what you would think. But I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I'm just kind of following along, seeing where this river takes me and going from there.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting news. And yeah, so I mean, we'll see where it takes you, but it sounds like it's a good group of people. It sounds like it's right up your alley as far as the everything that you're passionate about. So that's good, and lots of things on the horizon for you, which doesn't surprise me because you know that's when things like that happen. You know. And actually, the conversation about that had me thinking a little bit. As I'm sitting here and we're recording this, I have my watch charging on my desk. Do you have a smartwatch at all?
Yeah, I have the Apple Watch, one of the versions of it.
Does that one do like the HRV, the heart rate variability, and all that? I think it does.
I think it does at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's something that a lot of the smartwatches will do. I've had a Fitbit ever since 2019 when I first started doing a little bit of running and stuff. But now that I've been doing the cycling stuff, I decided to get a Garmin smartwatch just so it interfaces better with the cycling computer and everything. And it's been interesting. I love looking at the numbers from that sort of stuff because you can start quantifying things in terms of like the way you feel. And then you can look at the numbers and you're like, all right, so I'm not going crazy. This is, you know, But one of the things that I really like about this Garmin watch is they have this thing called the body battery, which looks at your stresses throughout the day. It looks at moments of relaxation throughout the day. A lot of it's based on the HRV and heart rate and all that sort of stuff. And then it gives you a score for how far you deplete that battery through the day, but also how well you charge it up at night. And it's very interesting to see that combined with the HRV stuff. So you know that if you've been, if I've been pushing myself a little too hard on like the bike stuff, then like, all right, it's time to take a day off to relax. And then you see the stuff coming back. But the reason I mention this is that I've been paying a lot more attention to the need for resting than I have in the past, because this is just flat out telling you, hey, take a break. And so I've been making use of that where, I'll do something in the morning, whether it's going for a ride somewhere or going to the gym or whatever. I'll do work throughout the day. And then I've been making a habit now to try to make sure I balance enough rest time with the, active time. I'll just sit there and like read a book for an hour or two in the afternoon. And then everything calms down and it works out pretty well. But yesterday I was recording a podcast, Matt Payne's podcast. I've stopped, collaborate, and listen. And Adam Gibbs was on there, Nick Carver was on there, and it was just talking about the whole YouTube experience and all that. And it was a great conversation. It was fun talking. I've never actually talked to Nick in person. I've never talked to Adam in person, so it was pretty fun to do that. And I was just sitting there. I was enjoying it. We're chatting about the various topics. I got this alert on my watch saying, "You have very high stress right now." And I'm like, "What?" I looked down, and then sure enough, like all the stuff was like way high. Like, I don't feel like I'm stressed. I feel like I'm just having like this conversation right now. But it was interesting that the watch was picking up. I don't know if it's just from doing a podcast or something like that, but like, my brain wasn't telling me, hey, this is stressful. This is like, oh, this is fun. But the watch was picking it up. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to have that feedback and then to listen to that. And then also to give more time to rest and relax. And it, kind of like what you're talking about, how with the, you've been putting so much time and effort into the photography and the writing. And sure, I mean, obviously you have massive piles of books, so you take time to read and to relax and stuff. But I think the shifting of gears and moving towards, this other potential job and a different way of thinking, I think it'll do you good. I think it'll benefit you with the photography as well as everything else, and combine that with the trips in there and the experiences from that. So I think you've got some exciting times ahead, and so I think that'll be good for you.
Yeah. Hopefully it's all good. Who knows?
Yeah.
So who do we got on our roster for
our
artist
photographer of the week? So as I always do, I go ahead and I browse through Instagram of the various people I follow. I always look for a person that does not have a huge following, someone who's maybe not like, doesn't have 20,000 followers or something like that. I look for someone whose work catches my eye for one reason or another. And so this week is going to be Cindy Christensen. So on Instagram, she is Cindy_Lee_Christensen, CHRISTENSEN. Don't see a website from her, but she has a lot of work. It says that she's from the Sierra foothills, which explains a lot of the places that she photographs. Some really beautiful work, and actually a variety of stuff as well. A lot of small scenes. In particular, there's some winter photos that really have caught my eye. So looking at her Instagram, looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rows down. I don't know if you can scroll that far on your Instagram, but there's a scene with this in the middle of that row with these mountains covered in a dusting of snow. And then there's a bit of fall color that is just kind of like clinging to the canyon there.
Yeah, that's from October 9th, 21.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one of those scenes where it probably didn't look like that for a very long time. You give it a little while and that snow is either gone or blanketing things, and then the fall color is gone. It's just that little pop of color, which is really nice. And then there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3 rows above that in the middle. There's a scene with these aspen trees and some mist, a little bit of fall color left on them. Just a very dreamlike image. It was posted on, looks like November 6th of 2021. Almost reminds me of some of the images I see of like the silver birches from the UK. I don't know if it's birches or silver birch. I don't know what the plural is for that, but really beautiful aspens there. But really, really beautiful work. There's some black and white mixed in there, some close-up scenes, some larger scenes, and certainly being located in the Sierra foothills and having that proximity to such beautiful areas is going to be very conducive for that.
Yeah, there's another scene from October 14th of 21. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the left-hand side, 10 down on the left-hand side of a little leaf just peeking out of the snow. It's just like almost a too perfect to be true kind of scene that was captured.
It's got the really cool snow sparkles.
Yeah.
Which gives it a really cool sense of image. And shooting something like snow in the sunlight is tough, but having that leaf backlit really gives it that pop of color.
And there's another one that's the very, very top middle one of the really dramatic clouds. Yeah. That's really nicely seen.
Yeah, that one has a very painterly feel to it. It's just something about the lighting and the scale of it. I mean, you can tell just by looking at you're llooking at something that's massive. But at the same time, just the way the lighting is on it, it feels like it's in like window light or something like that. And so it has this really nice look to it. That was another one that caught my eye. And then just to the right of that, there's some frozen surface of some water with some really interesting patterns. So definitely good eye, and some really, really, really fabulous work. I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.